Hey guys, it's Miss Weems with today's notes. Okay, so today we're going to talk about mood disorders, okay? All right, so there are two major extremes when it comes to mood disorders: major depressive disorders and bipolar disorder. Okay, so major depressive disorders. Depression is one of the most common psychological disorders. Now, phobia is the most common, but depression is the number one reason people seek mental health help. It is the leading cause for disability. Okay. 5.8% of men and 9.5% of women in a year are diagnosed with depression. Okay. Major parts of the body warning you that you need a break. So depression might be just that you've reached your breaking point. Okay. To have a major depressive disorder is when depression symptoms last for 2 weeks. Okay, so it kind of feels like mixing heartbreak and anguish with the jet lag of you need to eat, or you sleep too much or too little, you can't get some sleep, and you're sad for nearly all day, every day for 2 years or more. Okay. Women are twice as likely, as you can see, to develop major depressive than men. Women tend to have internalized disorders like depression, anxiety. Men tend to use external disorders like alcoholism or antisocial or lack of impulse control. So, from the behavioral and cognitive perspective, for depression, people could be sensitive to negative things, are more likely to have a negative outlook. And depressed people tend to have anxiety or substance abuse issues. And again, women can develop depression from postpartum, postpartum depression is something that happens after a woman is given birth and her hormones are all over the place and they just resettle in a very negative, depressive, and sometimes unhealthy manner, which is another reason women can be more likely to develop depression. Okay. Bipolar disorder. All right, so bipolar is a mood disorder, again, because that's where we are, in which a person alternates between depression and mania. So mania is this overly happy, overactive, overly elated. They don't sleep. Their speech is really loud and hard to follow, and they have this really over-the-top, extreme self-esteem that could lead to really dumb and reckless decisions. You tend to see it a lot among artists and creative poets because they need that emotion and imagery. Really mild cases of mania, you have a lot of energy, and the free flow thinking can fuel creativity. Ernest Hemingway had bipolar disorder. Walt Whitman had bipolar. So it's they tend to link it with creativity. Okay. So the longer the mania lasts, the longer the depression lasts. They tend to balance each other out. And bipolar is rare and has an equal impact in men and women. They're both equally likely to develop it. Okay, so major depressive episodes tend to end on their own. Okay, so therapy helps to speed it up, but many would return to normal without therapy. However, people can fight depression for a very long time, so it's beneficial to get help and have the process speed up. Stressful events related to work, marriage, or relationships often precede depression, and with each generation, the rate of depression increases and occurs earlier. Like people are developing it at younger ages. So let's look at it from the biological perspective. Mood disorders do tend to run in families. Again, there's a hereditary link there. So they're going to look at your family to determine genetic causes. Bipolar is linked genetically. Likelihood to develop depression is also genetic. So they're looking for some kind of correlation between DNA variations and that trait in the population. Norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter that increases your arousal and boosts your mood, and it's very rare during depression. They can't seem to find it in your body. And it's overly abundantly available in someone with bipolar during mania. They have a lot of norepinephrine. Okay, serotonin is also scarce during depression. Now, you can take medication that replicates those neurotransmitters, which helps. That's what a lot of antidepressants do, is they replicate serotonin, norepinephrine. And exercise also increases the serotonin in your body. So that's why a lot of doctors recommend a lot of exercise when somebody's experiencing depression. It helps alleviate some of the symptoms. They also notice that there's a lowered brain activity. So your left frontal lobe is less active or smaller during depression, and your hippocampus is very susceptible to stress-related damage. So remember, your hippocampus is your memory processing center, and it's also linked with your emotional circuitry. So that could explain why it's impacted by mania and depression. And also omega-3, which is a fatty acid, is lower rates tend to be related to depression as well. All right, so the social cognitive perspective here. All right. So depressed people tend to explain life in negative terms. So they focus on the, let's say, the stable, things are always going to be horrible, or the global impact, it will impact everything, or they internalize things saying it's all their fault. And if you live in these constant negative terms, it's going to fuel the depression. Self-defeating beliefs and negative explanatory style are going to feed it. You know, the thoughts, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Do the thoughts cause the depression, or does depression cause the thoughts? You know, self-focused people, again, with learned helplessness, they take all the responsibility and they have no support system. Collectivist cultures tend to express depression through letting others down. Okay, Martin Sliegelman argued that depression comes from the emphasis of the individual and the decline of commitment to religion and family. That was his argument. Okay, because depression-prone people tend to respond to bad events in self-blaming ways. Okay, they tend to trigger the other symptoms of depression. So why women are more likely to experience depression. In stressful situations, men tend to act and women tend to overthink. I'm not saying this is everybody. I'm just saying statistically, this is where the averages lie. And women tend to vividly recall spirit experiences, and men tend to vaguely recall some kind of emotional experience. Depressed people are also more likely to experience rejection. People don't want to hang out with somebody who's miserable, but when nobody wants to hang out with you, that makes the misery even worse, and it makes the depression accelerate. Okay, and again, you have crash course videos on mood, anxiety, and psych linked under the crash course tab. I highly recommend that you watch them as a recap. All right, guys, please, please, please let me know if you're taking the test and whether or not you have internet or computer at home, because we need to know so the county can get you set up. All right, bye.